afternoon, morning, evening, depending upon where you are in the city. Welcome to From the Halls of Justice. And my colleague is here with me, Murvet Arnstein, who is also the co-producer of the show. And this is the holiday season. So we are blessed to wrap up our year with the men we started out with. We have with us the wonderful Mr. Bill Rehwald. And also we have Steve Moore, the former FBI agent, and people always compliment us on our expose on getting involved in that Amanda Knox thing, and it's just so incredible to me because, to be perfectly honest, I had nothing to do with it. It's the quiet one over here. Mr. William Rehwald, or Bill as we lovingly call him, and like my partner, Murvet, one-shot Arnstein here, it's always the quiet ones that can get you where you really need to go, okay? So I need to plug your firm again. Mr. Rehwald, what's the name of your firm?
The name of our firm is Rehwald, Glasner, and Chaliff. Okay,
and you are just absolutely located in Woodland Hills.
Woodland Hills in the Warner Center.
And thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming back.
We have to do the wrap-up after
of course.
After the initial show we had on here.
That's true.
That was interesting.
What did you call it? Bill called it returning to the scene of the crime because Steve comes on defending Amanda Knox, and I'm ramming one end up going like, no, what if, I think she's guilty. And then, of course, she comes home. So, which is wonderful.
But you and I have something in common. I started out thinking she was guilty, too.
Thank you.
So I'm not upset with the fact that you started there.
Okay.
Because I think that's when a police agency says that they have evidence and they have things to convince a jury, you tend to want to have some faith that that's true. Mm-hmm. So I applaud that in you because that's kind of where I started. But it's not if we're ever going to be wrong. It's what we're going to do when confronted with more facts that counts.
Well, I don't know, Murvet, I don't know about what you think, but I was going off of what I read. So like I said, I was going off that
same thing with me.
MSNBC.com. Sure. I'm not ashamed to say it because that's where I got it from. Mm-hmm. and so I'm reading everything that's going on. So I'm really impressed with your tenacity, and they always say lead with your gut. And so now that she is home, can you tell us a little bit? I know you have to be very particular about what you tell us because you're security. So tell us a little bit about what you can.
First of all, it was gratifying, obviously, that the judges, there were two judges on the jury panel. The entire jury came back with such a strong exoneration. There are levels of not guilty in Italy. In America, it's just guilty or not guilty. In Italy, there's several levels of not guilty. One is not guilty, which means that they couldn't prove that they were guilty. There was just not enough evidence to prove they were guilty. And then there's innocent, which means the facts actually proved that the person didn't do it. Amanda and Raphael were not found not guilty. They were found innocent. Oh. And as the judge said, innocent because they did not commit the crime. That is how it was read in court.
That's a big turnaround.
That is huge. The other thing is, and this rarely happens in Italy, rarely happens, and when it does, this thing I'm going to tell you, it's usually considered a slap at the prosecution. Usually they say, you have been found not guilty or innocent, and you may process out at the prison or the jail where you are, and you are done. You are a free person. The judge in this case said, you are free as of this second.
Wow.
Just pronounced them both free where they stood. And that is usually considered a slap at the prosecution, and indeed we find out it was because of the report that came out day before yesterday, where the the judge in Italy writes out after a verdict the motivation for the verdict. Why did you find this? Why? What motivated you? And the judge said in one section that the crime was quote, a fantasy of the prosecutor.
Wow.
He called Amanda and Raphael good people who cared for others that were victimized by this prosecutor. He was extremely harsh on the evidence and what they called evidence. So this wasn't a release on a technicality. This was a complete deconstruction of a frame-up. And I'm very thrilled at what the Italian judiciary did.
It was 180 degree or 360 degree, whatever.
It was as far as east is from west.
Wow.
And every country is going to make judicial mistakes. Worse, every country is going to have people like this prosecutor in Italy or Mike Nifong in the Duke Lacrosse case, who simply do horrible things for the sake of their career. It's not a matter of whether Italy does it or America does it. It's a matter of when you see something like this happen, how do you deal with it? And Italy showed that it was willing to deal strongly with it.
Wow.
So we're very pleased. Amanda's doing fine.
Good. I was going to say, I heard Murvet when she asked you out in the waiting room in the green area, did you meet Amanda? That's, the big thing.
Yes, I met Amanda. I spent several weeks with her family. I was in Italy for about 2 to 3 weeks before the verdict. There for the verdict. That was the longest hour of my life in that courtroom.
And all of America was watching. They had the cameras in there that day, and we were all here watching.
It was pretty amazing. I was standing between Matt Lauer and Lester Holt and Elizabeth Vargas. And finally, they were all hogging up all the translators, so I went to a friend of mine over at the Italian network, the Italian RAI, which is their main network, and they translated for me. But I've got to tell you, there was a terrifying moment there where there was a delay before my translator would tell me what it was, and the judge said something and Amanda started sobbing, and I thought, no, that cannot be. And the Italian journalist turned to me and she had tears coming down her cheek, and she said, she's free, she's going home. The Italian journalists had changed their mind also.
Wow. That's heavy duty. I saw you on TV, and I think I emailed Bill. I saw Steve on TV. It was, I don't forget if it was Channel 9 or 5. I think it was 9. And they were interviewing you, and you were talking, and Bill's also nonchalant. He's so cool.
Nothing scares him. Nothing impresses him.
Nothing impresses him. Nothing scares him. Nothing bothers him. We had our moment, but he took care of my situation, and I was flipping and freaking. Bill just totally ignored me. So, what's in your future right now?
I don't know. I was hoping you'd tell me.
Okay. Look, I'm trying to get more Beyonce for the book and everything. I was like, oh, Steve's gonna do a book.
Well, I've finished one book, and that should be released in July.
What's the name of your book?
Well, it's Chicago Review Press is releasing it, and it's a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek look at somebody who went into the FBI a little early and grew up in the FBI, and it's called Special Agent Man, and it's a little bit humorous because I was not James Bond. I had a very successful career in the Bureau, but I was an unlikely person to succeed. I was a fraternity boy who liked to drink a lot of beer, and I had to grow up quite a bit. So that's what the title means. It was a little beyond me at first, and I had to catch up. But look for that, Special Agent Man. It's coming out Chicago Review Press in, I believe, July. Wow. And then working on another book right now. On the
Bill's going to be the co-author.
Depends on what we come up with. I think the publisher is going to tell. Publisher's going to have to tell me a little bit about that. I'm also doing a lot of work with CNN and Headline News. Done some work with CBS, all consulting on shows that they're doing. I'm what they call a talking head on Headline News. Several shows comment on ongoing investigations, and so I hope to go further on that. I do need to have a job now that Amanda's back.
Yeah.
But it's a good time. It's a good time because I get to spend time with my family.
Good. And I know that you have a lockdown on that too. But everything with the previous matter with Pepperdine, everything worked out. Everything's coming up roses.
Everything worked out. I still, I should tell you that I still think Pepperdine is a fine university. I have a niece and a nephew there. I have good friends there. It is a fabulous place to go to school. My problems with them is not indicative of a problem with the university. And so things are going as well as they could be given the circumstances. And if I start to get down on where things are right now, I just think of that girl in Seattle going shopping for a Christmas tree for the first time in 4 years.
Oh, that's really awesome. The time that you did spend with her, are you able to tell us anything about that? Or
it's hard because if you're doing personal security for somebody, they have to know that even if you're there, that everything that happens is completely confidential. So it's almost a doctor-patient relationship. But I will tell you that if anything, she is a little bit nicer than I had thought she might even be. She has a good sense of humor. She is intelligent enough to be scary, and she is as gentle and absent any violence as anybody I've ever met. If you sat down with her and spent just an hour, you would know how ridiculous it was that she, of all people, would have been charged with a violent crime.
Wow.
Yeah, Steve, it's interesting. I know that there are some allegations that the prosecutor was probably close to a beast or something like that. What was the phrase that your wife used?
Oh, yeah.
The insightful wife again. See,
well, insightful may not be the exact word for this one. During the closing arguments of the trial, Michelle and I were in the courtroom, and during a break.
So she went with you to Italy.
Yes.
Oh, that is so nice.
And we were staying with their family over there.
All right.
And it was
the Knox family.
Knox and Melis's. Her mother remarried, and now their maiden name, her married name is Melis.
Okay.
We stayed with both the Knoxes and the Melises.
Okay.
And at one point, the prosecutor in the case did something pretty horrendous. In kind of a desperate bid to get the jury upset, he showed photographs of the murdered victim. And she had been sexually assaulted, and these were detailed, horrible photos, both violent and obscene. And he did it without warning, without clearing the courtroom, without any notification of anybody, even the judge. And then he had the photographs on a loop, so they kept going for an hour. And so this upset my wife badly. And so during a break, the prosecutor was just standing there doing one of these kind of things, and she walked up to him about 5 feet away from him, just stared at him, and he turned around and looked at her, and she whispered something to him, and I think it was, "You are evil." I think it might have been that. And that in Italy is against the law. You cannot accuse a prosecutor in a courtroom of being evil or anything else. And so he called the Carabinieri, and she was arrested.
Your wife was arrested.
Took her passport away, and I was out, I had left and was doing an interview about 2 blocks away. We got a call from a British journalist saying, "Steve, you better get back. I think your wife's been arrested." And
Whoa.
so I came back. By the way, the British journalists over there were, except for the tabloid journalists, were fabulous. They knew the truth, and they were great about it. They knew Amanda was innocent. So I went over, and the Carabinieri were very, very kind to Michelle and I. They did not put her in a cell. I thought that was nice until I found out that it was because she would have had to have been in a cell with Amanda, and they didn't want that. They only have 1 cell for women there. They did not handcuff her, and they were very nice to me about. They found, and I told them my law enforcement background. The FBI has some good rapport over there with the police, and so we were able to get her released without being held overnight.
Oh, that's nice.
And so we're still waiting to see if they're going to prosecute.
Oh my goodness, all for calling him evil, huh?
Which in Italy you can't do.
That ended up in the headlines, didn't it?
It ended up in the headlines of
we can't let you go anywhere.
of every single major British paper, every single Italian paper. And it actually, I was scared to death of what it might do to the trial, to the situation. But the next day in La Repubblica, which is their main Italian newspaper, above the fold, on the page was a picture of the prosecutor that was not flattering, and above it the headline said in quotes, "You are evil." So even the Italian press were on Michelle's side. The people who wrote the articles had met Michelle. They knew that she's a good person. They knew that what motivated her, and the press was very kind to her even in those articles.
That's good.
So.
All right, Michelle.
My little felon.
She could be friends with the Walmart lady in Porter Ranch that whipped out the pepper spray. I don't know if you've been out of town, but
I did hear about that. I did hear about that.
Don't mess with Michelle.
Yeah,
okay.
she's not a violent person, but she does
Speak her
not
mind.
mind if people know what she thinks.
There you go. That's so cute.
Yeah. It'll be cute if she doesn't get prosecuted. I mean, what she's been charged with is a 3-year felony.
Oh my goodness!
It would be a prison sentence. So we're obviously not going to be vacationing in Italy.
Okay. Now, can you comment anything about the story that I heard you talking about in the room outside about what the prosecutor had classified Amanda as before?
Do you want to?
Can you do that?
Now, when you say classified her as?
Well, okay. See, I don't want to get in trouble for anything. So,
no, go
when
ahead.
you said that they said that she was an immigrant or a... Oh, okay.
There was an attempt by the prosecutor.
Bill was holding his breath. It's like, oh my God, what is she going to say? No.
There was an attempt by the prosecutor after Amanda was released to have her declared as an illegal alien, I believe.
Oh, okay. All right.
The purpose for that is that Amanda had been released. She was obviously not going to spend the next year in Italy. She wanted to go home.
Okay.
And so the prosecutor fully intended, we knew, to appeal this verdict, or to appeal the appeal, essentially.
Okay.
And our fear was, everybody's fear was, that he would do something to keep her from leaving the country until he could get the appeal filed, and then he could probably hold her there as an escape risk.
Okay.
But until the appeal was filed, she had nothing to escape from.
Okay.
So there was an attempt to have her kept in the country as an illegal alien, which makes no sense, holding somebody as an illegal alien to keep them in the country.
Right.
So,
especially when she's been in jail for 4 years.
Yes. That's what caused her to stay to
and that's what
overstay
caused her visa to expire.
Right. It reminds me of Ron White, the comedian who said he was in a bar, got in a fight, and the bouncer threw him outside, and he was arrested for drunk in public. And the policeman said, "You're drunk in public." He said, "No, I was drunk in bar. I was thrown into public." Amanda had no intention of overstaying her visa, and given the chance, would not have. But I do need to tell you that the Italian people were and the Italian police in Rome were fabulous to her. The officials at Da Vinci Airport in Rome took care of her like she was their own daughter.
Wow.
It was obvious that the Italian people had figured this one out, and they were kind to her. There was not one incident where any Italian even looked sideways at her. They knew what had gone on, and the main thing I saw from Italians were hugging her, crying, and saying that they were sorry for what had happened to her.
Wow.
Steve, is there any indication that the prosecutor is going to appeal? From what I was reading before I came today, that they couldn't make the decision to appeal until this decision came out from the judge explaining the rationale for the decision. I understand the opinion's about 143 pages in length, at least that's what's been reported. So is any indication that he intends to appeal, or is he gonna, put his tail between his legs and go back to Perugia?
Bill, that's a fabulous question. This is what he was waiting for. This is what, as Bill said, he could not file the appeal until he got the motivation report, which he got this week. He said something that made me think maybe he's going to put his tail between his legs, because this appeal would only be on legal error, as opposed to the earlier appeal, which was a retrial. Up till now, he has always talked about, I am going to do this, I am going to do that, I am not going to let this happen, or I am going to make sure this happens. This time he said, this is up to the chief prosecutor as to whether we will appeal. I think so, but it's up to him. So basically what he's doing is giving himself an out. The report, from what I've seen, does not make it an easy task for him to appeal. And no civilized country would extradite on the facts of this case. In fact, Italy has trouble getting anybody extradited to their country, even in the EU. The EU pretty much ignores their extradition requests because usually they're frivolous.
Wow.
I would be shocked and surprised if the United States were to allow an extradition.
Based on, you're absolutely right, Bill, because she would have the right to defend herself in the U.S. court and show that their facts were completely bogus. And the U.S., with that much obvious evidence that she had nothing to do with it, would likely not come close to extraditing. I hope, but you're the lawyer.
Yeah.
Not a criminal lawyer, though.
I think there's not much fear of that. The other thing is, even if they do file the appeal, I think we're talking in the Italian system, if the Supreme Court agrees to hear it, I think we're talking 4 years from now.
Yeah.
So it's just going to be a non-issue by then.
Well, hopefully the judge's decision will just stand and no worries.
He's a good judge. He was absolutely independent, and he based his information on independent examiners, not the prosecution or the defense's arguments. So you have to agree with his method.
Steve, what have you learned from this whole process that you've been through, from starting out believing Amanda's guilty, to getting on board, to writing articles, then to have your own career pulled out from under you because you got involved? And what would be sort of your take now over this 1.5 or 2-year process?
That's a great question. There are so many things I learned on so many levels. Number one is go with what you know to be true, regardless of the cost, because frankly, my life is more fulfilling and wonderful now than had I stayed in that little office with the company car and allowed her to just sit there without doing anything about it in a prison. That's one thing I would tell you. The other thing I would say is that you have no idea how much public opinion can change injustices until you get involved. That's crucial. And it's changed my life a lot spiritually. I think that I happen to have a belief in God, and the God I believe in is just, and I believe He does. There are going to be unjust things in the world, but He does get involved, and that's changed my faith quite a bit.
Steve, I'm going to read something that's now at the bottom of your emails. It's a quote from C.S. Lewis, and I just really enjoy the quote.
Oh, great.
It says, "Comfort is the one thing you cannot get by looking for it. If you look for truth, you may find comfort in the end. If you look for comfort, you will get neither comfort or truth."
And that was, I had to make a decision at one point whether to stay in an Ocean View office with a new company car and a salary and education for my kids, or make a decision that might cost me that. And had I tried for that comfort and still been sitting there in that office driving that car, it's very possible that that girl would still be sitting in a prison 5,000 miles away. And I would have had to have removed every mirror from my house. There would be no comfort in that. And so I do believe that when your goal is comfort, you're gonna shipwreck yourself. When your goal is doing the right thing, and by the way, I'm not the kind of guy to do the right thing. I am the guy.
Oh, you're blowing my show. What's wrong?
No, I am by nature.
Bill's asking some dynamite questions, and we're rolling with this, looking good. And we got 1 minute left here. What do you mean?
What I mean is that by nature, I am a guy who tends to want to do the logical, the sane, the thing that would cause the least problems and do the best for me. And I think that sometimes God puts you in a situation where you have to choose, and when He does, go with what He's telling you to do, because you'll never regret it.
You need to get that message out to the younger generation.
Yeah. I like that. We're being told to wrap it up. So since we're going to wrap it up, I like that last line you used. Go with what?
Go with what God tells you. You'll never regret it.
I like that.
I do too.
Well, thank you for joining us on From the Halls of Justice. It's been one heck of a year. Murvet, thank you for allowing us to be in the studio and come and work with you.
I'm happy to. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Time Warner, I wish these guys could be here for the next 10 years. Time Warner, you need to change your mind. Mr. Rehwald.
Yes, ma'am.
You're an awesome man.
Thank you.
You're a godly man.